There is good stuff going on. Hang on. The cavalry is on its way. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, former U.S. Attorney Chuck Ambrose will join us. He is warming up in the bullpen. I've asked Chuck to stand by for 2 seconds because we have a couple people that we want to get to quickly to Liberty Linda. Liberty Linda, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. Now, I was listening to Brett Kavanaugh while he was being interviewed about these allegations. He was asked the question, were you a virgin until you were married? I thought that was a question not needed to be asked. It was a question I don't believe should have been asked. We don't need to know his whole life. He just needs to defend himself from the allegations made against him. You know, Kevin, this will all go away someday, and we do not need to know anything other than the allegations against him. His children do not need to hear anything other than the allegations made against him. Kevin, you say Dr. Ford may not even show up. We notice always that in the pictures we see on television, she's wearing sunglasses. So basically, a lot of people don't even know what she looks like. However, they picked out one of the worst pictures of Kavanaugh they could possibly have found. Anyway, you know, we wish this would go away. Someday he will be on the court, and when that happens, I don't think we need to know everything about his life. Anyway,
I agree with you on Martha McCallum's question, yeah.
Right,
I agree with
right.
that, yeah.
I thought you're going too far.
Well,
you know,
that's why Roger Ailes, God rest his soul, I wish he was there.
Yeah, we don't need to know these things. In court, they don't need to know these things. Let's keep some dignity about him and his lovely family. That's what I think. We need to show him some dignity because when he gets on the court, we don't need to know his whole life. And with Rosenstein, now we're just learning the full story about it, and it seems that it was like a joke he was saying. He was being sarcastic.
Well, we're going to find out from Chuck Ambrose, who's worked at the highest levels of government, if that's what they do, if everybody jokes.
I'm ready to hear him. Yes. You've got the best people on your show.
Well, Liberty Linda,
Kevin.
That's only because we have you in the audience. We appreciate you. Thank you.
You're wonderful. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Chuck Ambrose, hang on. One more call. We go to Tom. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Tom.
Hello. Well, if you're going to rush me, I'll wait to this next guy you're going to have talk because
You've got a lot saved up. All right.
How long does he go? I can call back.
Why don't you call back, Tom?
All right. I'll do that.
All right. Thank you. Finally, to Chuck Ambrose. Chuck, it's tough getting you in. We sure do appreciate you waking up early. I know your years as a federal prosecutor, you probably got up early, so you look forward to sleeping in, but thank you for joining us.
Happy to do it. Sounds like you have some folks interested this morning.
My, oh my. Have we ever thought you'd live in a world where you'd have the Deputy Attorney General joking, allegedly, about wiretapping the president, the 25th Amendment, and that still gets blown off the front page because of what's happening with Judge Kavanaugh?
Where do you want to go first for this? You want Rosenstein or Kavanaugh?
I think we got to go with Kavanaugh first.
With Mr. Kavanaugh. Okay. Kevin, I supervised, managed, conducted federal investigations for 30 years, and that included FBI, DEA, and ATF, as well as police departments and other investigations. The suggestion by the Dems that this should be delayed to have the FBI investigate these allegations is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. I feel like I'm really back in high school looking at a student council election and we have cliques involved instead of senators. The allegations by Dr. Blasey Ford are about as bald as an assertion as you can find. They involve an event 30 years ago, if anything happened at all. That event, if it happened as she described, involved 2 or more juveniles, some groping through clothes, a statute of limitations that is long past, no federal offense committed, and the only reason the FBI would even think about this twice would be in the context of a background investigation, which they have already completed 6 times. She has been able to supply no detail, no witness whatsoever who could corroborate her story in any way. The witnesses whose names she did supply have all, without exception, contradicted her statement, saying that nothing happened. She is unable to supply the address where it supposedly took place, the date or time where it supposedly took place, or even any reason for her 30-year delay in bringing this forward. Accordingly, any investigation by the FBI, a state police department, or by Corporal Fudd of the Hick Sticks Police Department would look the same. It would read, here's what she said. We are unable to verify it in any way. In fact, persons or details which could be checked fail to verify any aspect of her allegations. And so what you have is zero, nothing. And regardless of the identities of or the interests of the people involved in this, if such an allegation had been brought to me when I was a prosecutor, I would have declined it and closed it without action immediately, because that's what the Constitution requires. It requires proof before moving forward, even toward a charging decision. And to have the Democrats want to convict in the court of public opinion on such an allegation is nothing less than despicable. To show you how really thin this allegation is, let's flip it. Instead of her saying it, let's say that he came forward himself as a matter of guilty conscience and confessed, but did so giving only these details. Your listeners may not be aware, but even a confession, in order to be charged or to use as a charge to go forward, requires corroboration. Even if Judge Kavanaugh came in and gave this story, we could not charge him or move forward because there is not a scintilla of evidence to corroborate that an offense even took place. Nothing. And one other matter on this, let's say that these Democratic senators like Hirono or Wyden or Blumenthal or Schumer came up to the bench and were prospective jurors in the case, saying things such as, all the men need to shut up. I believe her because she's a woman. I believe her because she's telling the truth. Before any evidence comes forward means that every one of those people would not be qualified to sit as a juror on this case. They would be excused by the judge for cause, and that cause would be an inflexible bias. So, now we have other people coming out of the woodwork because some Democrat somewhere got hold of a Yale Annual and went trolling to see if they could persuade someone else to come forward with an allegation, and that allegation was so ridiculous even the New York Times wouldn't go forward.
Our great friend Chuck Ambrose joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. How good of a lawyer, a judge, is Brett Kavanaugh? How elite is he?
He's up there. In terms of, his opinions being adopted by the Supreme Court, which is certainly a test you would look at as far as lower appellate court judges and how well regarded they are. Now, I have to say I disagree with one of them, and that was the opinion he wrote that was relied upon by Justice Roberts in affirming Obamacare. I have a bone to pick with that one, but the vast majority of his decisions seem to be very well written, very well researched, and he is extremely highly regarded in the federal bench.
When we take a look at how conservative he'll be compared to Alito and Roberts and Thomas, Chuck, how would you rank him?
Probably between Alito and Thomas.
Okay.
Justice Thomas was almost the twin of Justice Scalia in terms of his opinions. I can think of maybe one or two instances in their decades together where they had a serious disagreement. I think Judge Alito is somewhat to the right of Justice Thomas. But, you never really know until they get there. There have been instance after instance of appointments where the president who appointed the justice thought he was getting one thing and he got something else. But, all you can go on is the history of the opinions written to date.
Indeed. Let's go back to, before we get to Rosenstein, your thoughts on where this goes with Brett Kavanaugh. He sat down with Martha MacCallum on Fox News, KIDO Talk Radio. This was not an easy thing for him, being in the spotlight. And I know you've already addressed this. I love how we can just whip out an FBI report in 2 days like you're going to McDonald's to order a number 2.
Well, this one you could, because there's nothing there to address. You interview her, you say, yeah, this is what you said. That's all you've got, just the bare allegation. Might as well type it up, ever sign it. So, if somebody was saying, okay, here's something to investigate, since there are no facts or witnesses to interview that have not already been interviewed, that's a really quick job. But I'm really kind of ashamed of the Republican senators, again, using the test, how is this going to affect my reelection, instead of let's just do the right thing and get on with it. With Feinstein sitting on this for 2 months with it saying nothing, I would have preferred to have gone forward with the hearing on Monday, as they originally said they were going to do, and then have a floor vote and we would be done with this silliness.
Chuck, can you hang on for a minute?
Certainly.
All right, more coming up with our great friend Chuck Ambrose. If you have a question for Chuck, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Back with our great friend Chuck Ambrose. Chuck, before you became this fiction writer on Amazon, for people that haven't heard you before, can you give us a brief history of your career before you joined the Amazon best-selling list, sir?
Sure. The Air Force sent me to law school and made me a circuit prosecutor. So for 5 years while in Air Force JAG, I traveled the country doing nothing but prosecuting courts-martial. Racked up enough cases there to where I was attractive to the Department of Justice, and Joe DeGenova, who you frequently see now on Fox News because he represents the president, hired me as an assistant U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. I worked there for a few years and then moved out in the same position to the Kansas City, Missouri office for the Department of Justice. Probably have 300 trials under my belt. Those include murder prosecutions, mafia prosecutions, conspiracy prosecutions. So I've been in the courtroom a few times.
I'd say. Now let's go to a person you're familiar with, Rod Rosenstein.
Wow. Well, let's do a brief history of Mr. Rosenstein and why he never should have been hired in the first place and should have been fired long before now. We go back to when he was the U.S. Attorney in Maryland. He oversaw the Uranium One investigation, whitewashing Hillary Clinton's direct involvement in actual collusion between her own foundation and the Russians, selling 20% of the country's uranium and getting hundreds of millions of dollars in the process. So when he is invited to oversee the collusion investigation, this was reason for recusal on his own, but he refused to do so. He escorts Bob Mueller to the interview with the president to see if Mueller is going to be rehired as the FBI director. He is not. He knows Mueller and Comey are close friends. He's a close friend of Mueller himself. All of this should have barred Mueller's hiring as special counsel and justified recusal by Rosenstein if he was going to be hired, but again, no recusal. Rosenstein himself recommends to Trump that Comey be fired in a written memo. He's even interviewed by Mueller on the issue of the obstruction of justice relating to the firing of Comey, and under both DOJ and bar ethical canons, this is required recusal, but Rosenstein refuses to do so. Rosenstein himself signs off on the fourth extension of the infamous FISA warrant on Carter Page. The signing of any application like that, and I've signed dozens myself, requires that the attorney submitting the affidavit and application to the court, which in this case included the infamous dossier, quote, are true to the best of my knowledge and belief, unquote. In his testimony before Congress, Rosenstein refuses to even acknowledge that he even read the affidavit. This is a gross violation of DOJ regs, a criminal fraud upon the FISA court, and further justification for this man's removal. He has further led the stonewalling against the president's order that the FISA warrant and all the related stuff be declassified. And finally, in his appointment of his buddy Mueller to investigate the so-called collusion, he limits the appointment letter to focus on the Trump campaign, never mentions the Clinton campaign. And so he is, in essence, refusing to allow or to direct any investigation of the true Clinton-Russian collusion here. I could go on, but, we're piling a lot on one side of the scales of justice, and at some point they're going to break. Now, the real question that comes up to me in light of this more recent New York Times article saying that, I could wear a wire, what do you want to do? Let's see if we can get rid of Trump with the 25th Amendment. The question I haven't heard anybody ask yet, and maybe you have, but as you point out, I'm now a retired gentleman of leisure and don't get up that early every day. The question is this. What kind of meeting, let's even assume that Rosenstein's characterization of his remarks as sarcastic is accurate. What kind of meeting does that come up in? Who in the world is at this meeting, and what are they talking about? Who are the other attendees at this little treason tryst that are discussing how to get rid of a sitting president when they work for him? I am not really impressed with the results that these congressional hearings have had so far, but I really would be interested to hear Gowdy or somebody else get into that topic with Rosenstein. Why does this topic even come up?
I would agree with you on that. And what do you make of the idea of Rosenstein staying around?
I think it's the worst idea you could come up with. When we've talked about this before, I think the biggest mistake the president's made is hiring Sessions, who then says, well, I'd like you to appoint Rosenstein as my number two, and away we go from there. These together, Mr. Inaction and Mr. Resistance, are just the point men for the deep state and have, if not blocked, have certainly complicated the president's life ever since. I hope he's gone next Thursday when the president returns to Washington.
Chuck, hang on. We're going to go to traffic, and then we're going to go to the phones. Good morning, Dave.
I'm just Channel 7's Eric Gebert.
And let's go to Ryan in Boise for Chuck Ambrose. Ryan, good morning. Hello, Ryan.
Hey, quick question. You hear on the news that it's next to impossible to get an indictment in the District of Columbia on a federal employee. Is that true? And are you able to change jurisdictions if you're trying to seek an indictment?
Well, I think what you're referring to is it's virtually impossible to fire a federal employee. There are so many hoops you have to jump through that is difficult for most departments. Now, in terms of getting an indictment, I would say that if you're trying to get an indictment on a Republican, it's the easiest thing in the world. It would be extremely difficult to get one on a Democrat because the grand jury pool and the jury pool that you're talking about is registered at about 92% Democrat. So that's the difficulty that you're looking at, whether you're trying to indict someone or convict them in a jury trial.
Are you able to change venues when you're facing that type of jury pool?
It depends on the offense. The law requires that the offense be brought in the district in which it occurred. So if you have a single instance of misconduct that occurs only in the District of Columbia, that's where the indictment and trial are going to take place unless the defense can convince the judge that it is just patently unfair and that he orders a change of venue. Now, in the case of something more complicated like a federal conspiracy, and let's look at the Clintons, for example. Their Uranium One scandal could, in theory, be tried in Washington, in Maryland, or in Arkansas, because that's where their corporation or their Global Initiative Foundation is located. And federal conspiracy law provides that you can try it in any federal district in which any act committed in furtherance of that conspiracy occurs. So if I were to look in that direction and wanted to do the smart thing, I would probably bring that case in Little Rock.
Okay. Thank you. Do you think that's part of Jeff Sessions' reluctance to go after some of these people, that he doesn't think that anything can be done in the District of Columbia?
No, I just think that Mr. Sessions, unfortunately, is not the man of action that the Trump team thought he might be when they appointed him.
Okay. Thanks for your time. You guys have a great morning.
All right, Ryan. Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
call on KIDO Talk Radio. So, Chuck, what do you make of the future? I know you want Mr. Trump to fire him. What happens next with Rosenstein?
Well, I hope he is gone. Quite honestly, after the midterms, I hope that Sessions also is canned or resigns. And if we're looking for who the replacement might be, the short list, depending on other recusal issues, might include Joe DeGeneva. It might include Rudy Giuliani. They both have prior U.S. attorney experience in the department. Another name I would put on that list is former Attorney General Michael Mukasey, who has already come in and restored some order in one prior instance, and that was after the Alberto Gonzalez mess. He's a good man, is no nonsense, and has done the job before.
Chuck Ambrose, if people want to get a hold of your fiction work, what can they do? We always appreciate you joining us.
Go to Amazon and look for books by Mark, M-A-R-C, Rainer, R-A-I-N-E-R. There's a crime drama series that I've been writing for several years and doing pretty well.
Well, we appreciate it, Chuck. Thank you for waking up early. Being a gentleman of leisure, we appreciate it.
No problem.
Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
You too. Our great friend Chuck Ambrose joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Jeff Manasso joins us now. Fox News Radio, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
So we've got new words for the Scrabble dictionary.
So you're going to have to rethink your game, my man. No more cheating. No more making up words. This Merriam-Webster has released its 6th edition of the official Scrabble Players Dictionary. It used to be where people would just grab any desk dictionary to consult their strategy in their Scrabble playing, but Merriam-Webster came out with its first official Scrabble dictionary back in 1976, and it's updated about every 4 to 8 years as our language changes, particularly with the internet and the computer and new words like twerk. You think Miley Cyrus for that one. That's made the list. Emoji, that's a new word on the list. Okay, I thought okay would have been on the list a long time ago, but not necessarily. Yowza is on the list, and ew made the list. Zomboid, which is resembling zombies, made the list, as well as puggle, and about 300 other words. So you've got some new stuff to work with.
Well, who would have thought that it took this long for okay to make it?
Well, right. Doesn't okay? You're down to what? Just a couple of words on your tray, and it's been about an hour and a half. And you're looking at the clock already. Like, I just want to wrap this up, so you start making up your own words. I just figured okay would have been okay to use, but not. It is now. But
I'm with you. Who knows whether or not they'll be using those words when the Senate has their big hearing this week? They use a lot of words there.
Yeah. The week that I'm really glad I'm a Chicago reporter. A lot going on in D.C.
Indeed.
I think the only thing worse than covering politics is covering on entertainment out in L.A., to be quite honest with you. Good God.
There's always sports.
Yeah, I love covering sports, particularly the soft NFL of late, right?
Indeed. Jeff Manasso, we appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
You too, man.
All right, Jeff Manasso joining us. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning here, going over a few things. And the phone numbers are 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget, weekday mornings, you can listen at 6, you can listen at 8, 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. for your opportunities to win up to $5,000. That's right, up to $5,000. Kevin Miller's Money. More details at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Now, when we talk about being here with you, maybe you're new to the program. Many people continue to tune in, continue to move into the area. This program is a little different. You're going to say, well, Kevin Miller, what do you mean by that? We advocate for things. We advocate for our community. We advocate for President Trump. We proudly support President Trump. We have a team. The team is the conservatives. And sometimes we get into trouble with our friends in the Republican Party, the state Republican Party, not really the national Republican Party, but we drive on. And one of the differences, one of the many differences that we distinguish ourselves between us and other folks in the Treasure Valley is we're going to tell you what we think and then back it up. Which brings me to the point concerning Judge Kavanaugh. You're going to hear a lot about Judge Kavanaugh. You're going to hear people going after him and, saying, what do you think? Well, I know what you think. You think that, Kavanaugh is getting run, and he is, and it's unfortunate. Now, last night on Fox News, and when you hear Fox News in the Treasure Valley, the only reason why I say that is you have a lot of people that try and scam. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. That's 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Everybody else that uses it, they're not authorized to do it. And, again, we don't begrudge people for what they have. Please don't try and steal our material. So last night on Fox News, Martha MacCallum, a lovely reporter, interviewed the judge and his wife. And she asked some pretty hard-hitting questions, which is what we're going to get to here. And get your phone calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And I want to get your response. And some of these questions were just seemingly out of line.
This sort of attempt to kind of swarm a number of people who are putting at least enough doubt out there so that this process will be stymied, so that it will take longer, and so that they will get the investigation that they're looking for. Michael Avenatti says that he has significant evidence, and another accuser who claims that you and Mark Judge at multiple house parties in the Washington, D.C. area during the 1980s would participate in the targeting of women with alcohol and drugs to allow a train of men to subsequently gang rape them. There are multiple witnesses that will corroborate these facts, and each of them must be called to testify publicly. Did you ever participate in, or were you ever aware of any gang rape that happened at a party that you attended?
That's totally false and outrageous. Never done any such thing, known about any such thing. When I was in high school, and I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, a Jesuit high school, where I was focused on academics and athletics, going to church every Sunday at Little Flower, working on my service projects, and friendship with my fellow classmates, and friendship with girls from the local all-girls Catholic schools. And yes, there were parties, and the drinking age was 18, and yes, the seniors were legal and had beer there. And yes, people might have had too many beers on occasion, and people generally in high school, I think all of us have probably done things we look back on in high school and regret or cringe a bit. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an allegation of sexual assault. I've never sexually assaulted anyone. I did not have sexual intercourse or anything close to sexual.
Well, I think you get the message there, but you had Martha MacCallum asking him, did he ever participate in a gang rape? As I said before, at 580-5436, Judge Kavanaugh was worried about being number one in his class, making grades, joining the football team, being everyone's All-American. I don't know why Martha MacCallum did it, but that's what he's facing. Just the smear job that continues against a very good man. And we support Judge Kavanaugh here in the Treasure Valley. We support President Trump. Our goal is to bring President Trump to Idaho. No one else can say that. We know what side the other folks, the libs, are on. They want to destroy us. And under Obama, they came very, very close. Okay, Tom in Nampa, the floor is yours on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Okay, well, thank you, Kevin. It was worth waiting for. Let me preface what I'm going to say by saying I'm still all for Judge Kavanaugh, and I hope this whole thing is cleared up and he is confirmed and the Democrats end up with egg on their face. But let's look a little bit at some of the things that we face, and the Republicans are kind of between a rock and a hard place. First off, I think Grassley made a mistake by not sticking to Monday today, because I think that they're going to have another person by stalling this thing till Thursday. First it was Monday, then Wednesday, now Thursday. I think there's going to be a third woman they're going to dig up, and at such point they're going to have such a ball rolling in the press that it don't matter whether the man's innocent or guilty, he'll be crucified in the court of public opinion. Remember now, this isn't a criminal trial where you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. It is a highly charged partisan fight over political nominations, which will tilt the balance of the Supreme Court for quite some, for the future. And so that's what stakes are here. But I tell you, I'm a little worried right now that Collins is going to possibly jump the fence. And Lisa Murkowski up in Alaska, there's a judge that just let off somebody pretty easy on a sexual offense. And while that has no pertaining to Kavanaugh situation, it's making her a little nervous to vote for him. So if McConnell calls for a vote, I'm not so sure that he could pass the confirmation right now. And I think that's what Schumer is hoping for, is that somehow we're between a rock and a hard place. What's your take on that?
I think if you're going to pander to the press and everyone else, if you're Mitch McConnell, that's why you're a leader, you go. And I agree, we shouldn't have delayed. Now we don't know if Dr. Ford's going to testify. Now you've got this story in the New Yorker that has been debunked. Now you've got creepy porn lawyer Michael Avenatti saying he has another person. What that has to do with Stormy Daniels, I don't know. But, Tom, in your time in California or earlier in life, sooner or later somebody called you out, and you either answer the charge or you wimp away. And you worry about the consequences some other times. If we had believed the press, Donald Trump wouldn't have been elected. Everybody said it.
You know what I'm afraid of, Kevin? If they torpedo his nomination over this, and it isn't substantiated allegation, no man is safe from the left just going after him if they don't want him for some particular position he's nominated for. What man's going to step up and want to go through this again?
You're right. What man is safe?
Well, I think she ought to be cross-examined. Again, if they come up with some third person, and she may not even have to testify, she'll get it. She'll have got the results she wanted. But she needs to be cross-examination by legal counsel for the Republicans. There needs to be a woman that can do something like Arlen Specter did to Anita Hill. I don't think, they got us over a barrel, because there's 4 women on the Democrat side and they're all men on the Republican side.
Well, maybe I look at things differently. If I'm going down because I'm a man, because it's bad optics, so be it. I don't believe that it is bad optics. It's bad optics for people, Tom, that already hate us.
Yeah, but they'll stop at nothing, and so I just think the stakes are very high, and all it takes is third one to come out, whether it's substantiated or not, and there'll be enough nervous Nellies on the Republican side that could do this nomination, and Chuck Schumer will just be happier than heck. Look forward to the next majority leader of the Senate, which, whoa, I don't want to go vomit when I just think about that.
Tom, glad it was worth the wait. You have anything else? We appreciate you waiting.
No, that's it. But I think the stakes are high, and I hope he wins, and I hope this is fleshed out Thursday, and we can move on, and they can take a vote, and it'll be obvious this is all a cooked-up thing, because I think it'll blow up to the Democrats in the midterms, but it could work the other way, too, because the press is manipulated by public opinion to the extent that it seems like nobody thinks for themselves anymore. Thank you.
Great point. Thank you, Tom. Terry in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Terry.
Hello. How you doing?
Terry, how you been? You're in my prayers every night. How you been?
I've really been going through a lot of trying to get strong. I've just been very weak and been pretty sick. But I wanted to call your buddy Hannity. His people are going to call me back today, and we got disconnected. They liked what I said, and when I called into him, I told him I was acquainted with you, and you guys were buddies and everything. But what I mentioned to him was this investigation to have the FBI, Federal Bureau of Intimidation now, that has pulled a soft coup. It is insane for them to investigate this with this nomination. I mean, we've already seen that, that and between that DOJ and everything. And I mentioned that if anybody should investigate, it should be the Secret Service, and possibly get a hold of an ex-Secret Service guy, that Gary J. Byrne that wrote the book, Crisis of Character, about the Clintons. He was assigned to, I guess, Hillary and Bill. And I feel that would be a better investigation agency. But to have the DOJ or anything involved with them and the FBI, I mean, their credibility is really shot all to crud, and they should be investigated. And I said that really the person should be indicted or looked at. It got all this ball rolling is Hillary Clinton, and please don't tell me that statute of limitations, that she can't be indicted or looked at or investigated for the espionage and all this other stuff with that foundation, and the money that was taken away from Haiti. When that crisis came up, he had all the people from Haiti demonstrating when the Clintons came into, I don't know if it was the United Nations or some issue back east, but anyway, there's sufficient reason to look at that woman. And the Clintons, the corruption there, it's just the Clinton mafia. But anyway, I don't know if you can get a hold of your buddy, Hannity.
Well, it sounds like you got a hold of Hannity.
Yeah, well, his girl, I don't know, it starts with an H. I can't remember her name. And she called me today and said probably in a half hour to an hour, Hannity's going to call and talk to you about what you discussed with me. But we got disconnected right at the beginning when the background music or introduction came on. It disconnected me, and I didn't get to talk to him. So if he could call him and talk to him about that, I don't know if you have my phone number or not, but I just hope that the people, the public, the United States is not ignorant enough to get the FBI to investigate anything like this. I mean, the corruption and the DOJ, and I can't even believe this Jeff Sessions. He's totally a disappointment. What's your feelings on it, Kevin?
That's a tough one, Terry. I'm in the minority when it comes to Senator Sessions, but, you and your family are in my daily prayers. We love you, and we appreciate you listening. And if you get a chance to go on with Sean, that's great. And if you could, just tell Sean that we all say hi.
Okay. I love you, too, and I really appreciate all your prayers. I truly do. I'm not just patronizing you.
Well, I'm not just saying that. You are in my prayers every night, Terry. God bless you.
We
love you.
Really appreciate that. You're a phenomenal man. And I think great things are going to happen. I think you're going to end up getting your own show, just like Hannity did, got his on television show plus radio.
Well,
your connections, you're a very intellectual person. You got great native intelligence, and you have a caring heart and a love for this country and people. It's just phenomenal. And we're lucky to have you here.
I'm lucky to be here, Terry. I got to run, but I love you, brother.
I love you, too. You guys take care. And I hope that you can pass it on. I hope that people hearing this will make an issue and not let the FBI investigate that poor Brett.
Sure.
Or any of these people, because, they'll trump it up into the...
Right.
Excuse me, that's a...
Terry, I'm really out of time. I love you, brother.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Okay, bye-bye. Conservative Steve, please hang on. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.